I was introduced to drugs. I didn't turn 15 and say, okay, where's the coke at? Where's the weed at? I didn't say that. It came to me. My village failed me.
So after that betrayal, what happens to you?
Cut my ankle bracelet off. And then I heard a knock that Monday morning, and it was my probation officer with 2 cops.
How did your mom react to you being sentenced to spend 2 years of your life in essentially a prison for children? This is Michy Morillo. As a teenager, she was thrown into the system and locked away, not because she was beyond saving, but because nobody ever stopped to ask why she was hurting in the first place. Michy, welcome to Locked In. Thanks so much for leaving the warm to come to the cold today.
Ian, this is love right here, let me tell you. This is love.
Yeah.
Because I don't do this. I only do this for my kids that are locked up. So this is love right here. So thank you for having me.
Well, the warm coat looks good on you. I don't think you're rocking that in Florida. So
oh, yeah. No, so I had to pull it out.
No, it looks fresh. You got the boots, the whole outfit looks good.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you. And, tell the audience about this. This is the coolest book I've ever received from a guest. And I get a lot of books, pretty much every guest that comes, but this has its own package. Like this is sick. Whoever came up with this, you got to give them a raise.
Me.
All right, so give yourself a raise right here. That's awesome. Do you want to just tell the audience about this? And we'll have the link to this in the description of the episode.
Absolutely.
Too.
So that book right there, Cell Dreamer, I created that book because I was locked up my entire teenage years. And even the name Cell Dreamer is because I was in a cell dreaming of a better life. I wanted something better. And I was like, you know what? If I take you back, I'm going to take you for a ride. But I ended up creating that book because I created what I needed. I'm a former juvenile delinquent. My entire teenage years, I was locked up from the age of 14 to 18. In and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. It was that school to prison pipeline that no one talks about. Like even Mike, all these artists, they have a past. And it's crazy because when you go and you look at their history, I give them a lot of respect for where they are at now, because when you don't escape that school to prison pipeline, it's harder for you to succeed, and it was something I wasn't able to escape. And like I said, I was locked up. My father didn't come back. And I say this story because it's like, what? At 4 years old, my father was like, don't blow out your birthday candles. I'll be right back. And he never came back again. Never came back. And I think it did something to my soul to where I was like, you know what? I was rebelling. And my mom moved me from New York to Boston, a little town called Haverhill. And I turned that place upside down. And I was just mad. I was angry. And got locked up the first time because I had weed. Second time, my mom bailed me out. I ended up going back in. So I was in and out of the system my entire teenage years.
Did you move to Boston after your dad walked out or before?
Yep, after.
So right around after?
Yeah, so my father didn't come back when I was 4 years old. And then my mom moved us from New York to Boston when I was 11.
Why Boston?
It was a little small town. She wanted a better school for me. So from New York to a little town called Haverhill, it just seemed right for her. It seemed right for her.
How many of you were there, siblings?
Me and my sister. So I'm 9 years older.
Okay.
So when I was 11, she's 9 years younger. So she didn't really see a lot of things that I went through because my mom kind of also hid that from her. And it's funny because my mom told me this when I got older. My sister made a promise to my mom that she wasn't going to turn out like me. I did something that hurts. When your sister tells your mom, like, I'm going to turn out better. Because I was again, my entire teenage years, I didn't really have adolescent years. I didn't.
What did your mom do for work?
So my mom, she worked at the post office for a while. She's a decorator. She's an interior decorator. And I come from a phenomenal family. My mom's amazing. I am who I am today because of my mother. She was the one who gave me not only the strength to change, God first, but it was like, you know what? I seen my mom cry too many times. I saw her on her knees crying, praying. I come from a family of faith, so I saw her crying and I was like, man, what am I doing? I'm like, man, I love my mom at another level. And when I tell you that I love my mother, I have her tattooed on my right hand. She's my right hand. You know what I'm saying? She's my best friend. And I'm like, how am I doing this to my best friend? How I'm doing this to my mom? After she went ahead and want to give me a better life, how I'm moving like that. So I was like, you know what? I gotta change. Between that and then my cousin getting stabbed. My cousin got stabbed and I was like, I gotta move. So I ended up moving from New York to Boston. Then when I turned 18, I ended up going to Job Corps because I had two choices: either die in the streets or find a better way of living. And, or get locked up, at 18, go to an adult prison. There was fear there. There was fear there. I had two options: either get my life together or that's it, get killed, So I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore.
Tell us about your dad. Did he actually walk out on your actual birthday, or what was that
Yes.
situation like?
Yeah, so my father was into coke, and I remember, again, 4 years old, and he told me, just don't blow out your birthday candles. Ended up, and I remember just blowing out my birthday candles with tears in my eyes. I could remember it like it was yesterday. And back in the days, I wasn't even able to tell you and sit in any podcast for that matter and talk about it without tears in my eyes, But this is something you got to heal from. So he ended up not coming back that night. He eventually came back, but my mom was like, nah, it's either going to be drugs or us. So my mom was like, yeah, nah, my daughter deserves better. And she moved us to Boston.
Do you know
A
what
few years.
ended up happening to him after that?
Yeah, so me and my father are cool now. I told him how I felt. Again, I think that's part of healing, especially for a Latina woman like me. I think that a lot of we don't realize how fathers are important in our lives. You know what I mean? Like I said, even though I came from a healthy, good family, the absence of my father, you miss that. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of our Black and brown community, um, the fathers are usually absent, and that's the reason that I created the parent version of Cell Dreamer, so that they know how to navigate through an at-risk youth, because that's important within itself. So to answer your question, I didn't see him for like 15 years after. 15 years after. He was still in the drugs. He was still selling drugs, using drugs, and it was something that my mom pulled me away from. I just got in contact with him maybe like a few years ago. I want to say about 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Were you getting into trouble in New York at all before you
No,
guys moved to
not
Boston?
in New York. It was all Boston. Like I said, it was all Boston. So my mom would bail me out. I would, like I said, she would bail me out. I would go back in, bail me out, because my mom is such a supporter that she wanted the best for me, of course. But I wasn't learning, Ian. That was where the issue lied. I wasn't learning, and the best thing that I believe that a parent can do for a child is let them have the natural consequences, right? Because when you bail your kid out, and again, this is the reason I have a parent version for them that I created, and it's called Ignite the Dream, is because you're either raising a child or rescuing a child. You're either raising them or rescuing them. And my mom rescued me from my natural consequences. So think about it. If I'm locked up 3 times, there's no reason why you should be bailing me out. And the reason, so then the judge was tired. But it was like, you know what? You're going to have to stay here. You're not learning. So since you're not learning, now you have to stay here. So I ended up staying locked up. I was 16 and a half. And he said, you have to stay here till you're 18 now. So I was locked up till I was 18. And then I had a choice. Then I got out, but I went back to the same environment. And I saw everybody still doing drugs, still just being a mess, right? And I was like, Then my cousin ended up getting stabbed. And I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it. I have to reinvent myself. I said, what would happen if I just move and I create, and I'm intentional, right? Because if I'm doing this, all this, while being unintentional, what happens if I'm intentional and I move and I rock this? And here I am. I ended up volunteering. I was 28 at the time, and I volunteered at a detention center. And one kid told me, like, you don't know about this life. I said, and a light bulb went off. Ian, when I tell you that a light bulb went off, I was like, wait, what? I'm like, I do know. And I found myself explaining myself to this kid. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to create something that even if I leave, my words stay. So I created Cell Dreamer, not realizing, Ian, that it was going to take off in the detention world. Completely took off. Right now, we're in 28 states. We have that's a whole curriculum. Not realizing that, hey, so the school that expelled me ended up finding out that I wrote a book, so they hired me. So the school that expelled me ended up hiring me and said, hey, listen, can you come and speak to our at-risk kids? Because who better than you? So I ended up taking that contract, and it was the best thing I did because I was able to not only give back, but show them, like, you guys expelled me, but you guys didn't ask me the right questions. And that's what Cell Dreamer is about, is asking the right questions, because the school to prison pipeline is real. It's real, and the goal is for it to stop at that pipeline and not go from the school to prison pipeline to now to go to a prison, right? Because once you go to a prison, you already know, and a lot of these kids that I deal with, they're not bad kids. Ian, you're not a bad kid. A lot of the kids that I work with, they're not bad kids. I deal with killers, but that does not make them a bad kid. They made a bad choice. There's a difference, right? And when you look at it from a lens of compassion, instead of asking, why did you do that? Is what are you going through? When you ask that question, then you get an answer. I'm doing this because of X, Y, Z. You get what I'm saying? And it's like people don't realize. So I got in this field, like I said, it took off in the detention world. I just launched the Million Youth Mission last year, 10 months ago, last year. And the goal is to have the audience be part of the village, right? So many people, my village failed me, Ian. Think about who you hung out with back in the days. I was introduced to drugs. I didn't turn 15 and say, okay, where's the coke at? Where's the weed at? I didn't say that. It came to me. So that means that my village failed me. So I have a campaign out right now, and it's the Be the Village campaign, because a lot of people will say it takes a village, it takes a village, it takes a village. But where's the responsibility in that? Where's the responsibility in saying it takes a village? That means that you're taking away from saying I can do something. So it's Be the Village. So we have a campaign now, and it's the Million Youth Mission. And what we're doing is we're getting donations. So now we're getting the community, and we're being a village. So anyone who donates, now we're just shipping the books to these kids so that no one's left out, so that they're able to look inward while they're locked up. They're able to dismantle their structure of knowing so they don't go to a prison, because the system is meant for us to fail.
What do you think that trigger was when you were 11 years old? You moved to Boston, never gotten in trouble before in your life, didn't act out. What was it about that time period that affected you?
Betrayal. Betrayal's real. It hurts, right? I don't have a problem with the Jesus of my life, those who have light. I have a problem with those who act like Judas, right? Those who betray you. And I think my father not coming back, that's a form of betrayal. That hurts. At 14, 12, 13, all you can do is internalize and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not wanted. I'm not old enough to think about it. Listen, he's doing drugs. This has to do with him. This has nothing to do with me. No, not at all. I internalized it to her, like, listen, well, wait a minute. He doesn't want me. And that gets you going. You're making up these stories. The judge, I threw a chair at the judge, for crying out loud, because in my mind, he betrayed me. He said, you have 30 days to do. I did my 30 days. I got out. I had a court date. And he said, you know what? Another 30 days. Well, wait a minute. And I was young, and I threw a chair at him. And he added more days on top of that. But that chair that I threw, again, somebody from the outside looking in, is going to look at that chair that was thrown as, look at this hooligan. Look at this. Look at the way she's behaving, as opposed to saying, well, wait a minute. She's going through pain, because I internalized that as betrayal. You told me 30, so you lied to me. You lied to me the way my father lied to me. My father said that he'll be back, and he didn't come back. You told me 30 days, and now you're adding 30 days more. So loyalty for me is important. So again, anybody from the outside looking in is like, well, she threw a chair, not realizing that's the reason the right questions are important. It's not, what is she going through? Listen, I work with these kids, and some of the baddest kids are the coolest, amazing kids. They've gone through things. So it's betrayal.
They're also the most hurt, usually.
That's what I'm saying.
At the family home.
Oh my God, 1,000. I couldn't agree with you more. Those who need more attention are the ones that have the most potential, and they're the ones who are hurting the most. I've seen it, Ian. I've seen. If you go to my page, I'm grateful because these detention centers allow me to film in there, and they'll tell you, you know what, I'm hurt. They have PTSD because some kids actually want to get locked up because there's security there. There's security. They have shelter. They have food. They get to shower. So you mean to tell me that's a bad kid? That's a kid trying to find security. I was trying to find someone I can trust. A male figure. You get what I'm saying? So I believe that this is where trauma starts. It begins. This is it right here. And again, this Be the Village campaign for the Million Youth Mission, it's important because if you think back, even your audience, if they think back to who has failed you in your past when you were young as a teenager, your village is everything.
So after that betrayal, what happens to you?
After the betrayal?
Yeah.
With well, now I look at betrayal differently. I look at betrayal as part of God's plan, right? It's redirection. But it's crazy because I think, I'm not saying I've been the most betrayed, but I've been betrayed a lot, but I think it also gave me a muscle, a tolerance muscle, right? That people are human. And it has nothing to do with me, Ian. It has nothing to do with me. People are going to betray you. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you before, I don't have a problem with people who move like Jesus, who carry that light. I have a problem with people who are like Judas, that don't necessarily carry that light, right? And for me now, I navigate it differently to where I ask myself the same thing I ask these kids. Man, who hurt you? Because if you're moving like that through the world and you're hurting people, hurt people. I'm not trying to sound like a quote. I'm not trying to sound like a Facebook post, but it's the truth. Hurt people. If you move like that, that means somebody hurt you. So I got to have more compassion with you.
That's your mindset now, but what happened to you back then? Back
then, it's the drugs, it's the coke, it's the weed, it's the cutting the ankle bracelet off.
Were drugs the first thing you were introduced to?
Yeah. First it was weed, then it was ecstasy, then it was acid, then it was coke. And that was my favorite choice of drug. It was coke. But I really believe it's because that was my father's choice. And I remember the first time I did coke, I asked myself, I remember looking at it and saying, man, if my father left me for this coke, if my father left me for drugs got to be better than love. A kid shouldn't think like that at 15. For a while, I thought that coke was better than love because my father left me for drugs. And that's not healthy for a kid to think like that.
Who introduced you to drugs the first time?
Friends. The village, right? The village.
And how old are you when this happened?
I want to say I was 14 and a half. 14 and a half. Again, I didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what? I wonder what weed is. It came to me. Ecstasy came to me. All the drugs that I've ever done came to me, fell on my lap.
Going online without ExpressVPN is like not closing the bathroom door. Even if you think you have nothing to hide, why would you just leave everything out there for strangers to see? There are creeps, companies, and trackers watching what you do online, even when you don't realize it. Here's the part most people don't know. Because all your internet traffic flows through your provider, your internet service provider can literally see every single website you visit. And in the US, they're legally allowed to sell that data to advertisers. They make money off your privacy without asking. That's why I use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP can't see or track where you're going online. And the best part, it's insanely easy to use. I just open the app, tap one button, and I'm protected. Plus, it works on all my devices, my phone, laptop, tablet, so I'm covered no matter where I am. It also hides your IP address, making it extremely hard for third parties to track what you're doing. And it's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge, so you know it's legit. I use ExpressVPN especially when I'm traveling or using Wi-Fi outside the studio, airports, hotels, coffee shops, anywhere that feels sketchy. I've had situations in my life where privacy mattered more than anything. I learned what happens when too many people get access to things they shouldn't. That's why protecting myself online is something I take seriously now. So, secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/lockedin. That's expressvpn.com/lockedin to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. One more time, expressvpn.com/lockedin. What do you think it was that had you into those drugs? Like, I think every kid's different, and not every kid is going to be willing to try drugs or be receptible to it, but some are more than others. So in your case, why do you think you accepted the drugs and wanted to try them? What interested you the most about them?
So remember, I'm moving from New York to Boston. Again, a little town called Halo. So now at 14, you want to fit in. So I want to say I also wanted to fit in. Fit in was more important to me than staying out. For sure. I could say that. People pleasers nowadays, they don't just become a people pleaser. You don't just one day say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and please people. No, you become a people pleaser because you were first a parent pleaser. You were trying to please your parents. And then you grow out of that, right? And then it transmits into being a people pleaser. So I just wanted to fit in at 14. And it spiraled from there.
How did the drugs lead you to getting into legal trouble?
Just choices, right? Because if I have a curfew, at 15, 16, I have a curfew. You've got to be in by 7 o'clock. I didn't care about that. I looked at my probation officer like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing that. Then I got put on an ankle monitor, and I cut the ankle monitor off on July 4th because I wanted to hang out. Because again, fitting in was more important than my freedom. And I cut my ankle bracelet off. And then I hung out. And then I heard a knock that Monday morning, and it was my probation officer with 2 cops. Came and picked me up and locked me up. And I was like, that's it. The judge said no more.
How old were you at the time when that happened?
I was 16.
So you're on the ankle monitor for how long?
2 weeks. I couldn't do it. And I talk about that in my book. Again, it's not a book. It's a curriculum. It's a workbook. It's going to ask questions. And I'm so happy that I put that chapter there because a lot of kids, they'll write me and they'll say, you know what? Hearing your story about cutting your ankle bracelet has made me think twice about cutting mine. That's huge. You know the letters that I get in the mail from these kids that are locked up? I'm able to get released. However, they want to put me on an ankle monitor, on the ankle bracelet. And I was thinking about cutting it, but I read your story. on chapter 3. And you know what? I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to do what I got to do.
Why do you think you didn't have respect for authority at that age? Was it because your dad wasn't in the picture?
That's a great question. I would have to say yes, because it's a father figure. There's an authoritative voice, your father, and he's not in the picture. Why should I listen to anybody? I think it was also I also think it had to do with just cops. I didn't want to be told what to do. You know what I mean? So being locked up your entire teenage years, it changes your perspective. It's not like when you get locked up as an adult, you know that there's consequences for the things you do. But when you're locked up as an adult, as a teenager, you see things as people telling you what to do. You don't see things like, oh, they're doing it for my own good. No, it's not like that. It's you can't tell me what to do. It's an attitude. You're dealing with hormones. You're dealing with this. You know what I'm saying? You're a kid, for crying out loud. Our brains don't develop till we're 26 years old. So at 15, 16, you have somebody other than your parents, other than your mom, other than your father, telling you what to do. It's not going to go right. That's the reason you got to speak to these kids with compassion. These kids got love and respect for me because of the way I speak to them. I see them. I understand them. I can relate to them. But a lot of these people, a lot of these staff, a lot of these CEOs, the way they speak to these kids, it's not okay. And then they're going to grow up to not have that respect for authority. Right? I thank God I've changed. I'm able to look at a cop and be eating at a same place that a cop is eating and pay for his meal because I'm grateful that he's serving our country, right? But back in the days, I wasn't able to do that. And I've also been blessed that the COs and the POs and the people that were the staff that were in these detention centers, they showed me love. I gave them a heartache. I gave them a headache. I gave them, I was that kid. I had no problem. I ripped a phone out of the wall because they told me that my time was up, that I wasn't able to speak to my mom any further. Right? So I was mad. But remember, like I told you before, those who act up the most are the ones hurting the most.
So the cops show up at your door, they take you away. Where do you go from there? Right to juvenile detention? Or did they keep you in holding till you see a judge?
No, that's it. So straight to listen, these people, these staff, they welcomed me like if they knew I would fail, Ian. I remember they told me, hey, your room is ready. It was like they bet that I knew, it was like a bet that I would fail. It was in a holding cell. And we went to the detention center because the detention centers back in the days, the way it was a facility. And you're there until you get sentenced. But it was not a holding. No, it was real. And then you would go into placement after that.
So how long are you there for before you get sentenced?
It could be 3 months. It could be, I've met girls there a year.
How long did you wait?
I waited not long because I remember having my court there. I want to say only weeks later. And that's when the judge said, you know what, you're done. You're staying till you're 18. And then I got into another placement, into another juvenile detention center that held me until I was 18. So like about a year and a half.
Do you think the sentence was a bit harsh for your situation?
No, absolutely not. Ian, I really believe that everything I have gone through is for this right here. It's for that book right there. It's for the Million Youth Mission. I really believe that everything I have gone through is my purpose, it's my calling. So I really believe that it was part of God's plan for me. Do I think it was harsh? No.
At the time.
I didn't learn. Ian, I called my mom and I told my mom, I said, you know what? You want to know what would have helped me? Is you not bailing me out that first time or the second time. I said that to my mom. Mom, you're an amazing mom. I love you. But I think I would have learned if you would have let me in there. Allow me to learn. Allow me to fall, right? But again, when you rescue a child, that means they're not gonna learn. They're not gonna learn. So yeah, no. I'm glad. I'm glad. I wouldn't change anything.
What was the second time she bailed you out for?
It was all drugs. It was all drugs up until the end.
So the first time you got in trouble for drugs?
Yep. It was drugs, skipping school. It was just petty stuff like that. It was all petty stuff. And that's bananas to me, because now I go to these detention centers and there are kids with autism who are locked up. There are kids with autism that are locked up, Ian, because they didn't go to school. So when I tell you that it seems like the system is meant to see you fail, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because now you're not giving them resources. You're not giving them what they need. It doesn't make sense. You're treating them like a criminal for not going to school. A kid with autism? I had a kid tell me, he's like, it's scary in here. Coach Michy, it's kind of scary in here. Thank you for coming to see us. And he's also in there with the person who killed their father. So do I think that was harsh? Yes. Do I think mine was harsh? No.
At the time, you probably thought it was harsh, though.
No, Ian.
You had the same mindset you have right now?
At not the first time, but the last time, I said, this is it. This is it. I have a kid that I'm coaching right now. I have a contract in VA, and he said something, and I understood his voice. I understood his heart, because he said, Coach, you know what? I think that I'm in here because of karma, because of everything that I have done, and I'm glad I'm in here. The kid's 16 years old. You know, I think that's some of the kids that I coach, and they come to me and tell me that. They've come to me. You look at my page, some of the things that they say is, you know what, I'm glad I'm locked up. I'm in here because of karma. You know what, God, everything happens for a reason. I think that God has me here because he wanted me to get out of this gang. You know, I'm here. I think I'm here because God wants me here. You know what, I deserve to be here. That's the conversation. And I get that. Because that last time, it did something to my soul. So I'm like, you know what, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm not learning. Right? There's a difference between being smart and having wisdom. There's people who are smart but don't have wisdom. Right? And I think at that age, again, I say this humbly, I'm smart, but there's a divine intelligence that comes that you're like, well, wait a minute, something's got to shift here. You know? So yeah, no, I got that at 16, I understood that.
How did your mom react to you being sentenced to spend 2 years of your life in essentially a prison for children?
Crying, devastated. Remember, that's the reason she bailed me out. She didn't want to see her daughter locked up. Crying. This lady, she couldn't, this lady, yeah, I felt bad.
Were you afraid?
Yeah. I was afraid of a lot of things. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to change my life around. I was afraid to fail my mom. Yeah, my mom, at the end of the day, yeah, my father did that, but she was like, I'm going to move to give my daughter a better life. And I turned out to be like my father. I became the person she was trying to keep me away from. So that's devastating. It's my mother. No kid wants to make their mom feel like she failed as a parent. That's not it. No kid wants to make, I don't care, the thuggest of the thugs. Nobody wants to make them feel like, man, I'm making my mom feel like she failed as a mom. You know? You're working 2 jobs for me, and this is how I repay you? No mom wants to see that. So I was scared that I wasn't going to change. I was scared that I wasn't going to amount to nothing. When I got expelled, I was like, man, I stole a dictionary, for crying out loud. Because I'm like, yo, I can't be stupid out here, man. I got to do something. I got to do something.
Tell us what juvenile detention was like for you.
It was lonely. Solitude. Now that I'm older, solitude became a strength. But a solitude is not, it's some of these detention centers now, it's like, it's not summer camp, I'll tell you that much, because you're in a room by yourself. So you're alone with your thoughts. Sometimes there were lockdowns and you would be locked down. That's it. You would come out, eat, come out, shower, a little wreck. But I spent a lot of time in solitude because I was also misbehaving. I was getting restrained a couple times a week.
What do you mean by restraint? What would they do?
They would restrain me. They would. You couldn't tell me no. I'm throwing a tray. I'm doing something. I would get in fights all the time to where they would restrain me, and bring me to my room. Physical restraint. Bring me to my room. Now I'm there for 48 hours.
They restrain you to the bed?
Yeah, they would restrain me to. Well, no. So physical restraint is they would about two staff members. They would restrain you to where you can't move. Right? No hands. They got your feet. They got your hands, and they carry my little ass to the room, and now you're there.
Are you free to walk around the room?
Yeah,
Okay.
just in the room. Yeah.
And why would lockdowns happen?
If somebody snuck in drugs, if someone snuck in, if there was a fight, just misbehaving, petty stuff, I think it's worse now than it was back in the days, though.
Why is that?
Because I go to these detention centers, and the lockdown, I've seen 23-hour lockdowns, and that's a long time for a kid to just be locked down for that amount of time. The lockdown here wasn't, you would still come out, right? Not here. They'll put you in a pod all by yourself. In a pod, all by yourself, one kid. Shut, see nobody. I think it's definitely worse now.
What was one kid's case that you encountered there that, you still remember to this day?
There's this kid, and I never ask their cases because I don't ever want them to feel like ashamed, right? As a coach, as a youth coach, I want to make sure that they know that I am there to help them look at their future. I'm not a therapist. A therapist normally looks at your past, right? A coach looks at your future. So I never asked, but he decided to tell me that he killed his father. And I was like, oh, man. So the first thing I asked him was, so you were on drugs. That's what I thought. I'm like, so you were on drugs, right? He said, no, ma'am. He said, I've never even done drugs. He was going to kill my mom. So I killed him first. Wait, what? No, I was lucid when I did it. I know exactly what I did. That did something to my soul. That did something to my soul because his mom was about to be killed. So he killed his father. And now he's serving time for it. Then another case that really hurt my heart was a 12-year-old. He didn't know who to call because his mom was locked up across the street in the adult prison across the street. So who do you call when you're 12 years old and you're locked up in a detention center and your mom's across the street at an adult prison? Who do you call? So those stories are real and it hurts because I'm like, eesh. I hear stories all the time also. I needed a place to stay. I needed food. I needed shelter. So all these stories vary, but it's like they're kids. They're kids.
Coming from a good family like you did, aside from your parents splitting, did it ever make you wonder how some of these individuals, kids your age, were capable of doing such violent acts?
Again, compassion. Because if I fell in the trap of the school to prison pipeline, just imagine them. And their environment was way worse, 100 times worse. Never went without a meal. Bills, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, I come from a good family. So if I wasn't able to escape the school to prison pipeline, man, listen. The stats. And I came from a fatherless home. So now think about it. There's people who got it worse. Worse. And I don't blame, I not that I don't blame them, but there's compassion there. There's compassion there, Ian, because it's like, man, listen, again, this is the reason I decided to create this mini youth mission. Because they just need guidance, man. They just need guidance. Some of them have inherited pain. I had one kid tell me, Coach, this is all I know. My daddy was locked up. My uncles were locked up. Of course I'm gonna get locked up. Like nothing. Like, of course 2 + 2 is 4. Yeah, of course 2 + 2 is 4. Like that.
Out of the kids that you encountered while you were in juvenile detention, what do you think a common theme was amongst those kids?
Father. Their father wasn't around. Their father wasn't around and they were just being rebellious. Some of them are in gangs and they're like, I don't want to be in a gang, but I just want to feel loved. Wait, what? I don't want to be in a gang. I don't want to do this. My father's not around. That's all. The fathers, a lot of them, most of them, 98% of them all come from fatherless homes. All comes from fatherless homes.
Do they mix women and men together?
There's different pods. So there's a pod for girls and a pod for boys. That's it. Excuse me. And they're not able to see each other.
What were the girls there for? Was it violent stuff or was it more
It's different with girls. Believe it or not, it's actually really different with girls. With girls, it's fights. It's just constant fights. But there's anger there. Again, but the one thing they had in common, their father wasn't around.
Who do you think is affected by the father not being in the picture more, a girl or a boy?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to say, ooh, that's a great question, Ian. Let me tell you why. Because with the boys, I hear all the time, I don't want to be, I don't want to be like my father, you know what I'm saying? They cover it up differently. They just cover it up differently. But you could hear the pain. Oh, my father's not in the picture. I think it's so normal for them that their father's not around that it's just like, you know what? They cover it differently. But I think the girls, I think it affects them more. Let me tell you why. Because then they get with these guys because they have daddy issues and they're looking for love in all the wrong places. Now they're dating someone not based on love, but based on a need, right? That need of wanting a man and this and that to feel secure. So I think that the boys just cover it differently, but I think it affects girls differently because you could see it, and you could see it in their choices. The guys they date, the toxicity of it. Yeah, for sure.
Were the guards physically violent to you guys as kids?
No, I can't say that they were. But as well, me, I never experienced violence. No, it was actually the opposite for me. I actually experienced favor. I had COs, the guards, give me Kit Kat at night. like here you go, and like slide a Kit Kat.
Oh, that was your favorite candy?
Yeah. So that, so I kind of, I experienced more favor, right? Because I was that troubled kid. And I respect those people because they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. There was love, there was respect there. Like, matter of fact, me and one of my old teachers that was like, she was my math teacher when I was in juvie. We're cool to this day.
Aw.
And even my probation officer, she actually buys books and helps kids now through the book.
Do you think that there was enough programs, classes for individuals at that time?
Absolutely not. And that's the reason I say that they failed me. Because if you see me a second time, a third time, how come you're not asking me the right questions? How come there's not a program that is asking me, why are you here? What's going on? I had a therapist call me and a psychologist call me when I first launched the book. And they said, how did you create this book? What college did you go to? I said, I didn't go to college. Instead, I got expelled from school when I was in ninth grade. I said, I created what I needed. I ask questions that no one else asks. I'm asking these questions. How many times have you been locked up? Why have you been locked up? Who do you need to forgive? I'm asking these questions in this workbook, and they were blown. And that's the reason we're in 28 states now, because they're like, oh, this is a program that we're in Alaska, and they use no other program but Cell Dreamer. So when I tell you, I really believe that everything happens for a reason. I really believe that it was for this reason here, right? But no, they failed me.
Did your mom come to visit you?
Oh my God. Absolutely. Whether I was a mile away, 3 miles away, 25 miles away, or a state away. She did not miss visitation. Nope. Every Saturday she was there. Every Saturday. That gave me more of a want to change. Again, loyalty is important to me. That runs in my veins. So for me, it's like, well, wait a minute. I got to repay this lady back. I got to become somebody for this lady. All these artists, again, there's a like Allen Iverson, the fact that he was locked up at such an early age. Snoop, they were all locked, Mark Wahlberg, and they made something of themselves. That's huge. And I say their stories because these kids, they got to know, like, listen, when you chip away all the unhealthy things, and you chip away the friends, and you chip away the drugs, and you chip away all these things that no longer serve you, what stays? For Allen, it was basketball. He's a beast. Look who Mark Wahlberg is nowadays, right? I became an author once I started chipping away things that no longer served me. And so I asked him, chip away, and what's left? Because when you start chipping away, that's your purpose right there. And you're going to figure it out.
What experience in juvenile detention do you think impacted you the most for the rest of your life?
I think it wasn't so much the detention experience. I think it was when that judge said, you know what? You got to stay in here till you're 18. That impacted me the most because I had no control. I had someone deciding for me I had somebody deciding my life now. Like, what do you mean I'm staying here for a year and a half? I think that year and a half was real for me. And I came up with a game plan. While I was locked up, I came up with a game plan at 16 and a half. So that's the reason I created this, so they could come up with a game plan while they're incarcerated. It was that. That really did something to my soul. Between me not having to do more time and then two, feeling like you betrayed me. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I got to do something because the math ain't mathing. This ain't it.
What was that game plan for you?
The game plan for me was to get released. I didn't want to go back to school because I don't believe that I don't believe that school teaches kids life skills that are needed nowadays. You get what I'm saying? So I went to a trade school. So I was the one who designed that entire book because I went to Job Corps. So my game plan was going to Job Corps, um, and creating something better. It was just creating something better. It was such a simple plan at the time, but look where I am now, right? Like it was a simple plan. Like, how can I do better? Let me start by getting away from my town. I needed out. I needed out from that little town. And I ended up going from Hayrow to Springfield, Massachusetts, and that's where there was a Job Corps there, and I stayed there for a few years.
Tell us about that transition from Job Corps to where you're at now, what that evolution was like.
So once I left Job Corps, I ended up going back to my mom's house, and that transition was hard. And the reason it was hard, Ian, it was because again I went back to my environment, and old friends were doing the same thing. The same people that introduced me to drugs, they were doing heroin now. They now they're bugging. And I was like, this ain't it. Then my cousin got stabbed. And I remember crying and walking around the block and saying, I need a game plan. And I said, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna recreate myself. I'm out. And I gave myself 6 months. And I went to Walmart. Once I left Job Corps, I also got a job as a graphic designer. And every check, I ended up just saving it. I went to Walmart and I saved every check. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, nothing personal, but I gotta go. I gotta be out. Seeing my cousin get stabbed, yeah, he made it and he's paralyzed now, but seeing him get stabbed, that did something to my soul because I was like, oh God, I saw my family, it was bad. It was bad. So I said, what I'm gonna do is I gotta go. So 6 months go by. I remember my friend at the time, I said, you know what? I'm moving. She was like, I'll go. Let's move. Let's be roommates. I said, okay. And I rented a U-Haul. I traveled with a safe, and I just drove to Florida. And I remember stopping at Southwest 8th Street. My favorite number is 8. And I remember stopping at Southwest 8th Street and going to this building complex and said, hey, can we rent a place here? And they were like, it doesn't work like that. You need credit. You need a background check, and I think she saw the desperation in my face. And she said, you know what? We don't take cash. I at least need a money order. And you can stay here. And then the rest is history. And I've been in Florida ever since.
So tell us more in detail about this program that you created and what it does.
So it's an 8-week curriculum. And it's all on self, right? So if you look at the chapters, it's self-esteem, self-motivation, self-discipline, self-discovery. It's all on self. And what it does is it goes through in chronological order on steps. Like, for instance, on that first chapter is self-awareness. It's knowing who you are. It's all on life skills. How many times have you been locked up, right? And the reason that it's been successful is because these kids are saying it's one thing for me to see that my parents are saying that I'm doing something wrong, or the judge or my probation officer saying that I'm doing something wrong, but it's something else, coach, that happens when I'm looking at it with my own handwriting, that I'm seeing that it's me, that I'm the one who have been making these decisions. So then they go through that process. Even it's just a lot of reflection on even situations, on how same situation, but what can you have done differently? Because remember, we're still dealing with kids, right? So in the same situation, what could you have done differently? And they'll write it down. This is what I could have done differently. And then it also has a release action plan so that when they do get released, there's a plan there. It's like their own blueprint. So they're writing more than they're reading. So my story weaves in and out of it. And right before I get to the good part, I'll go ahead and have them write. I'll tell my story. But hey, now you've got to do this exercise on you've got to know what triggers you, right? Most adults know their love language. However, they don't know what triggers them. And it doesn't make sense. You've got to know all these things, right? So with these kids, they've got to know what triggers them. You've got to know because guess what? You're going to leave here and you're going to get triggered out there. So I like to tell them, don't look at this as punishment. Look at this as preparation. Look at the cell as a preparation stage so that when you do get released, you have an up on those who are still in the streets. So that's the way they navigate it. They navigate it in a way that they're like, okay, well, this isn't punishment, even though they're taking responsibility for what they've done, right? Okay, so I got to take responsibility, but at the same time, okay, what can I do? What can I do to have a mental mind shift so that when I do get released, I don't go back to the same old behavior? I've had kids tell me I was just bored. I was bored, so I robbed the grocery store. Wait, what? What can you do differently? So it's having them look inward.
How effective do you find this program?
Thank God, so far it's been super effective. Super effective. We do pre and post surveys, and we see them have a complete shift in how they move, even their parents, right? Because that's the reason we created the parent version, because the parent version is Cell Dreamer, but for the parents, right? It's called Ignite the Dream. And I created it with Dr. C. She's amazing, and she's got her PhD in education, and she comes from the parent perspective, and I still come from the child perspective, so that they know how to navigate these kids who are at risk. Because let's call it for what it is. They're at-risk kids. And it's effective. It's even more effective when the parent gets involved. It's more effective when the parent says, okay, well, wait a minute. I see a change. I also want to change. Because a lot of these kids, it's learned behavior. It's learned behavior. It comes from their parents. And we can't go ahead and serve the youth without serving the parents. I think that there's got to be a healthy congruence between the two. And that's when it's really most effective, when the parents get on board, when they dismantle that structure of knowing, when they really break that family. I don't want to say family curse because I don't think it's a curse, but I will say is when they break these family unhealthy patterns.
Now, there's a lot of people that I talk to that come on the show specifically that get out of prison, and they talk about the first thing they want to do is get back into prisons to speak, especially the youth, or be an inspiration to people that have been in their shoes, and they kind of don't necessarily know how to put that plan together, but it seems like you've had success in that. So what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would have to say is why. I think they have to look inward why. I think it has to be more than just giving back, right? And just saying a story. Like, you got to leave them with something tangible. Again, the reason I've become successful is because I created something tangible. Create something that even if you leave, your words stay. You've got to do something. I think people want to see not only the change, people want to experience the change, right? People don't see me changing. They're experiencing me helping these kids change. And I think that's what's important for them. And I would love for them to reach out because I am looking for eventually coaches to go into these facilities. There's only one of me because it is a curriculum and it's to coach the curriculum. If I could find some great, amazing people to go ahead and coach this curriculum and help these youth, because it's already created. Why recreate anything, right? And it's team up with people who are already doing great work, And again, I created this not to give back. I created what I needed. I was failed. So I just created what I needed. And that's the reason I believe this became successful. Because it was more, but I think that sometimes giving back can come from a place of ego, right? Well, you know what? No, but I think sometimes it needs to come from a place of desire to see someone's life really transform, right? It's not giving back and then laying back. No, no, no. It's saying, you know what? Um, it's being that village, right? It's saying, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna do this because I've seen it. I've seen people get out of the system and want to give back, but sometimes giving back is not enough, right? You've got to offer them something because people don't care how much you know. They care about how much you care. They don't care about how much I know. These kids don't care about how much I know. However, they care about how much I care. They see the quality of that book. They see that it's matte black. They see that I added spot UV on the handcuffs. They see that I show up. They see that I created a curriculum. I gave myself a curfew to create that. It took me 4 years to create that book. 4 years. But it was because I said, you know what, I'm going to create something that is tangible, that they're, you could see the quality of it. But I wanted them to feel that. Like, man, she took time. This took thought. I don't want to just be in the system. Again, I want you to call me when you get out. I want to be that village. And that's the reason that whenever these kids get out, my DM blows up. Hey, coach, can you mentor me now? Hey, coach, I'm looking for a job. Hey, coach. And I say this respectfully, but I've been a coach before it was cool to become a coach. I coached myself at 17 years old on how to be here, right? And I think that is saying, you know what? I want to be there. I want to be the village. How can I be the village? Because most people will say it takes a village. No, no, no. I am the village.
What advice would you give to a parent that has a kid, a teenager, or even younger than that, that's starting to get in a little bit of trouble or act out?
I would say reach out to us. Send us a DM because we do donate the parent version and it's look within, right? Because at this point, sometimes it's not about the child, it's about you. How have you been showing up? I've had kids tell me, you know what? I hate when my mom yells. My mom can't speak to me. She yells at me. But then he rebels, and then he's the problem. It doesn't work like that. You've got to look inward. So I think reach out to us. Again, that's the reason donations are important for the Mental Youth Mission, because that's what gives us the opportunity to go ahead and donate the parent book, donate these books to kids who are locked up, to kids who aren't locked up. The student version, because I have two versions. I have the juvenile version and I have the student version. The student version is in high schools, and they use it as a curriculum, as a course. It's called the Freedom Starts Here course. Right? So, and in order to graduate, they get credit for it. Again, I didn't know I was creating that. So just to answer your question, I think the parents got to look inward, but with compassion, right? Look at yourself with compassion. It doesn't mean you failed, but it does mean that you got to tweak some things in order to have that connection. I had, it was a back to school event that I was invited to, and I was giving away the student version. I was donating them. And I remember a parent saying to her daughter that was right beside her and said, "Oh, she needs this book. You need to get this book." And the daughter kind of looked at her with an attitude like, "I don't need that." So I said, "Excuse me, man." I said, "Mom, come over here." I said, "Listen, why don't you have a better approach? You see the parent version right here. Why don't you tell her, hey, listen, I'm going to get the parent version. You're going to get the student version, and let's do this together." And try that approach. I pulled her aside and I spoke to her about it briefly. It was like a 15-second conversation. I just said, "Listen, try this approach. See, and you know what she said? She told the lady, she told the daughter, she said, listen, I'm gonna get the parent version. She said everything I told her to say. I'm gonna get the parent version, and I'm gonna get you the student version, and let's do it together. The daughter's demeanor changed, and she said, okay, Ma. She said, okay, Ma. It's the approach. It's not how you say. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. There it is. Sometimes it's the parents. And I got love for my parents. Okay, but not for nothing, my mom rescued me. Loves me so much that she rescued me. That didn't help me. And that little approach, the way she switched, the daughter said, okay. But 30 seconds prior, she was like, I ain't doing that. I don't need that. Because she put her out there. Oh, you need this. Come on, man. It takes a village. Right? That's what you guys been saying. It takes a village. No. Be the village. Come on. Show her something different. It's trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma. The way they move, done autopilot. Because their mom spoke to them like that. And their grandma. These kids need a different type of love. They're pretty smart.
I love that.
Thank you, brother.
Well, Michy, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate
congrats
you.
on everything you're doing.
Same to you. I love what you're doing, and we'll have the link to all your stuff in the description of this episode.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Enjoy your trip back to the warmth and leave us cold people here.
I'm out of here.